UtopiaFest. Hi, Todd. We had pizza last night. I'm going to put you on the speakerphone now. Hold on. Say hi.
God, what a racket. How's it going?
Great. Where do we start?
I don't know. You're in charge there.
Where are you calling from?
I'm at home. I'm in San Francisco.
Are we interrupting dinner or anything yet? It's still early, isn't it?
How early is what?
Are we interrupting dinner?
Oh, no, it's not that late. I only just got up a couple hours ago.
You gonna let us ask a bunch of questions, Todd?
Whatever you're in the mood for.
Yeah, that's what we're in the mood for.
Okay.
All right, we're going around the room. We got about 45 people here.
Oh, shit.
We'll keep it brief. You know, when you have to go, you let us know.
Okay.
Where we start?
Todd.
We have, this is Shannon here. She's 5.
Hi, Shannon. How you doing?
Good.
Ask your
When you
question.
started to play guitar, did you have any problems?
Do I have any?
Yeah.
Me at this point in time?
No, when you started to play guitar.
Oh, when I started to play guitar, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about today. Well, I suppose I had a lot of problems. I guess that, to me, the biggest problem is that in order to get my hands on the guitar, my parents bought this guitar from a music store, and you could get the guitar cheap if you agreed to get a certain number of guitar lessons. And I wanted the guitar, but I didn't want the guitar lessons. So the hardest thing was sort of enduring the guitar lessons until I could go into my room and play with myself, as it were.
Go ahead.
Todd, I've heard that you may play guitar with Ringo Starr's All-Star Band next spring. Can you verify that or not? And if either way, could you talk maybe about how that association came about and what your feelings are about it?
It's my understanding that this is what's happening, but also my experience has been that Mr. Starkey changes his mind a lot. Part of it has to do with the fact that he's not an American citizen, so he can only spend a certain number of days a year in this country. And I think that what happened was he decided that he wanted to record an album and discovered he didn't have enough time to do an album and do a tour in the same year. So now he's going to do the album this year and do the tour next year. And anything could happen between now and then. The last I spoke to him, I was supposed to be on the tour. He called me, I guess it all came about sort of because of the gig we did at the Jerry Lewis Telethon a couple years ago.
10
For some reason
or
it seemed
11?
to stick in his mind.
Are you talking about the Utopia gig, like in 79?
Yeah, that jam session with
Time goes quick.
the disco dance party and the telethon thing, yeah. I guess it came on about 3 or 4 in the morning, most places.
Todd, I have a question.
Yeah?
Okay, I wanted to ask you, it's obvious that the computer hasn't permeated the home
Yeah?
yet, and yet you're using it to, if I can speak for you for a second, it seems that you're using it to kind of put forth your own artistic ideas and philosophical ideas and whatnot, and you're going to help other artists do the same thing, it seems, from what I read in the UT. And so what I'm asking you is, do you think that you're going to have to marry it with video in order for it to permeate the home so that you can get your messages put forth? Or do you think that there'll be an evolution of the computer or something like that that will eventually bring it into the home or whatever? I'm kind of losing my question, but basically that was sort of it at the beginning.
Well, I hope this doesn't get involved. There's this rumor going around in the computer industry that television and computers are on a so-called collision course. In other words, they're going to eventually become more or less the same thing. And instead of buying a computer, you'll buy a computerized television, or the computer will be able to, you'll be able to plug your cable into the television and be able to plug other video devices into the computer/television and have them controlled by the whole thing. So it's, I'm just trying to be prepared for the time when that sort of thing happens. But it's what everybody's more or less talking about now in the computer industry. Something that they've wanted for a long time. That's what they call interactive television, and that's the ideal at this point from the standpoint of the latest computer developments. So even though most people haven't heard anything about this, it's there's a lot of talk about it behind the scenes. And that's my answer.
Okay. One of the favorite records of mine that you've produced is the Cheap Trick record, Next Position Please. I thought you did a great job. And one of the songs on there contains, I think, one of your best songs and one of Robin Zander's best performances, Heaven's Falling. Yeah. And what I'm wondering is if there might ever be a Todd box set with your version of that song on it someday. Or if...
I don't know if there is I don't know if I have a version of that around anywhere. I may have if I looked around, but I did the song, I just kind of demoed it up for them to use. And I don't really recall whether we started again from scratch or whether we used any of the like rhythm track or anything from the demo. It may be around, but it seems unlikely that anything like that's going to happen. You know, I didn't put enough work into the demo to really make it usable for other purposes.
Would it be interesting for you to re-record that, or is it?
You know, there's too many other things to get onto. You know, to go back and do that. Go ahead, go for it. That's Todd. All yours.
I've been a fan of yours since 1968, and I'm thrilled that you called. My question is, why wasn't the full version of Baby Let's Swing released on the Run album?
As a matter of fact, there was a lot of confusion about that. There's a medley that appears on the so-called official version of the album that is actually a cut-down version of 3 entire songs, kind of hastily slapped together because the running time on the album was too long. There was a mistake at the pressing plant, and some unspecified number of versions of the album with the full versions of each of those songs on it got released. So there's a possibility that you may be able to find someone with a copy that has the entire song on it. But the reason why we cut them into a medley was that the full versions of all songs just made the album too long.
And is it about Laura Nero?
Pardon me?
And is that song about Laura Nero?
Let me think. Let me see now. Who could it be about? I think it's about Laura Nero, yes.
Todd?
Yeah.
You can do all these miracle things with computers and video. Why can't you get Utopia back together again?
Oh, in fact, Roger, Willie, and Chasm are all available the week of December 15th. Are you?
The week of? Okay.
December 15th, are you?
Actually, I'm not sure. I think I'm supposed to go to Japan that week.
Oh, no.
What? Like it would take us a week just to stop laughing.
Now, that's not what they said.
Well, you mean like we should do an album in a week? Album tour in 1 week, all right?
No.
It's a 1 week tour.
There's, things are always possible. It's, of course, there was that close call there where we almost signed a record deal, but as it turned out, the record company wouldn't really have been a good thing anyway. So the time will come around when it's actually the right thing for us to do, and when it does, then you certainly will be the first to hear about it.
We'll be there. All right. Next.
Todd, I'm probably your oldest fan here, and yet I've never met you or talked to you, so I just want to tell you it's an honor to be able to talk to you, even over a phone like this, in the midst of such a great group. My
I'm as thrilled as the phone company.
my question is a little bit selfish in that even though you're my favorite artist, I've often wondered what you've thought of several of my other artists, and if I could just briefly get your views on some people like Stephen Stills, Joni Mitchell, and Joe Walsh. Any comments on those people?
Well, there are some people that I guess that throughout my life I've gotten really sort of fixated on. I thought they had something that I really wanted to study and steal from them. And I can't say that any of those particular artists loomed large in that respect. I've respected various things they've done, but never been so nuts about them that when they put out an album, I have to check it out and find out what it's about.
Who are the people that you would like to steal stuff from?
Who do I steal stuff from?
Who would you like to?
Well, I've had, like Laura Neal was a big influence once, and Stevie Wonder was a big influence. A couple of jazz musicians like Bill Evans and a few other people. I suppose at one time Elvis Costello was a big influence. I thought he was a real good songwriter and studied a bit what he did. And I guess in that sense, it could have been anybody, but it just didn't happen to be those people.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
Joe Jackson?
Joe Jackson? No, I can't say ever Joe Jackson.
Todd, you mentioned a couple of different times that Grand Funk was your easiest group to produce. Is there one group in particular that you produced that you felt you had to do too much work and went in like totally blind, that you really had to over-direct?
Yeah, well, there have been a couple instances of that. Most of those albums don't do too well for some reason. There are some cases where I knew I was going to be heavily involved in the structure of the album and helping guide it musically. Like, for instance, the Tubes records that I work with, and in some respect, on those particular projects, I would have hoped that the band had been a little bit more focused and able to contribute more. But often that was the reason why I was asked to come in, was because they had lost their direction or something, and needed somebody who was going to be involved to that degree. There are a couple records probably nobody's ever heard of where the band came in and they were just so completely unprepared that I had to almost do the whole thing myself. And I really hate doing records like that. Much prefer doing a record where I can just sort of sit in for the listeners who are ultimately going to hear the record and offer my opinions about what's going on without having to take them by the hand and lead them, write the notes, the lyrics, and the melodies and stuff for them. So, yeah, it happens sometimes, but I try to avoid it.
Todd, I came from Washington, D.C., and I wanted to ask you, since you didn't win the presidency in 1988,
oh, damn.
I wanted to know why you refused to play the cellar door down there.
I refused to play it?
Yeah, that's what you told me when you were in Baltimore at Hammerjacks.
Oh, well, you've seen the size of the band, haven't you? We played, when I had the a cappella group, which had approximately the same number of people, 11 or 12 people, we barely fit on the stage at the cellar door, and we didn't have any equipment at all. So it's just ridiculous. Couldn't possibly fit this band on the cellar door stage.
Just a size thing, not working with the people there.
No, well, we have had some problems with the various, people being incompetent, but I don't think that's the only situation. It's just kind of a drag that there aren't that many places in Washington to play, except for that one place.
As long as you keep coming to Baltimore, you're close enough. So.
It's a really difficult gig, it's a difficult place to play for such a small place. It's almost not worth it.
Okay.
Todd, do you have a recommended avenue that an aspiring artist would take to get maybe a tape for you to produce eventually?
A recommended avenue?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Let me see now. I'm not sure I understand the question fully.
Well, if there was a talent here that's maybe not appreciated, we feel out there in the musical world, and we wanted you maybe to take a look at it or to eventually praise it for production, perhaps.
Are you talking about me personally?
Right.
Well, I'll tell you the way it usually works. Given my druthers, all I'd work on was my own stuff, probably. I enjoy collaborating with other people, but when you take that on as a production, it's a whole other responsibility. You're responsible to them. You're responsible to the record company. It's what I do for a living, not what I do for fun. And in that sense, when someone approaches me to do a gig, they have to be prepared in all the various in various regards. Like, for instance, they have to have a record contract, which means that they have a record company that's going to pay to make the record and promote it, and things like that. Often people think, well, geez, just listen to my tape. Well, I can listen to it, but I can't do anything about it. Beyond that, I get so many tapes, even in terms of my professional life, that it's rare that I just pick up a tape that somebody's given me for fun and listen to it, because I'm already inundated with music on a professional level. So the outlook isn't especially isn't great, of me just like taking a tape that somebody gives me and listening to it, and then sitting down and analyzing it and writing down my opinions and giving back to them. I can barely get myself together to do that when I've actually been hired to do it. So so that's kind of the situation. I know that some people feel that my opinion would make a difference or give them a direction to go in, but I don't think in the long run it's going to be a help to you. I think that what you really got to do is work on your thing, and if you're a performer, do it in public, and you'll soon find out whether it's any good or not.
Great, thanks, Todd. Another question is, by your recent tour schedule, it appears that you really enjoy playing gigs in Ohio. And I'm just kind of curious, why is it that you enjoy apparently so much playing in Ohio?
Well,
As opposed to the East Coast. We're
well, if anybody's there from the old Cincinnati group, then I'm sure you could probably answer this question.
They're not here.
They said they were the best fans in the world.
Yeah, we play where we get invited to play. We don't go out and say, I don't go to my agent and say, I'm in the mood to play Ohio. Go out and get a promoter calls up the agency and says, we want to promote a show here, and we'll take on the responsibility of doing that. And if enough of those people call up, or if one promoter calls up, in this particular case, the tour is principally being booked by one person. Now, there are a couple other promoters, but and they say they're interested in doing it. Well, if I have the time and the offer seems right, then we do it. But it doesn't have anything. It has more to do with the audience than it has to do with us. If the audience it demands the tickets, then that's where we play. It's the capitalist manifesto. It's the way things work. You guys create the demand. I create the supply or something.
How can we pressure promoters in our own areas to be calling your agency up?
Pardon me, I couldn't hear you.
How can we pressure promoters in each of our respective areas to call your agency and ask for a show?
Well, I think it's based on they base it a lot on history. I mean, we're in a pretty good position because, unlike a lot of acts, we have a very solid core audience, like you guys, like you know how it goes. So when we don't suffer the same kind of recession effects that a lot of other acts suffer. And some acts go out and they'll be really huge one year, and a year later they won't be able to sell any tickets and have to cancel their tour because people are not specifically. You know, they want to go out to a show, but they're not saving their ticket dollars specifically for that act. So in a place like Ohio, for us, it seems like whenever we go there, we do well, and the promoter knows that, and begins to understand that the audience, you know, will always come out whenever we play there. So he's willing to take a chance and put us on 6 months after we've been to the same place. I mean, we were just in Cleveland in the spring, and now we're going back to Cleveland again. So it's obviously, it's you guys just buying the tickets when we do show up, and that convinces the promoters that there's still interest, and so
Hey,
they'll
Todd.
take a chance the next time.
Todd, your duet with Shandy was really great on Second Wind. Did you like that effect? Would you do it again?
Would I do which again?
The duet with a female vocalist.
Yeah, it's fun doing duets with other vocalists. There's people are very showbiz, you know, and every once in a while you see. Musicians don't always hang out together. Like people imagine that everybody in the music business knows everybody else, and they always hang out in some secret place. You know? But occasionally you run into another musician, you know, that you might get along with, you know, and you always talk about, oh yeah, let's get together, let's collaborate, let's do this, blah, blah, blah. Probably for every 99 of those conversations, something, one time that'll actually happen. So there's been talk of it before, you know, with various people, but it's never really, never become a big thing, except in the case of like, Jim Steinman, when he gets completely fanatical about it, said I have to do it, even if I don't want to do it. You know, in that particular case, which was, you know, like the duet with Bonnie Tyler, she had done her vocal like some other time, you know, or she was about to do it. I'm not even sure, and so I was singing by myself. It wasn't really a duet. I was just singing, you know, just sporadic lines with holes where she was supposed to sing. You know, it was not a duet in that particular sense. So, but I did do a duet in the on Nearly Human with Bobby Womack, and that was a lot of fun. So duets can be fun, but as far as official recorded duets and things like that, they're kind of rare, I guess.
Todd? I was wondering if there's any story behind the multicolor SG that you played or have played in the past.
Well, there's a story behind it. It doesn't have much to do with me, but...
well, how did you get it?
I got it from Jackie Lomax, who got it from George Harrison, who got it from Eric Clapton, who was the original owner of it, or the original most famous owner of it.
Is it true that Eric Clapton's trying to get it back?
He hasn't tried to get it back. No, he hasn't called me, and he could do any time he wanted to. I think he was just interested in its whereabouts. I don't know what he would do with it if he got it back anyway. I don't know if I'd give it to him.
No. Keep it.
Okay.
Todd, what?
Todd, I've always been fond of musicals, and I was lucky enough to see Up Against It twice, and I was wondering if there's a possibility of a second life for that, either theater, record, or movie, anything.
Well, there's always a possibility. I mean, that's the funny thing about musicals and musical theater and stuff like that. It's not like records where you release a record. If the record isn't a big hit right after you released it, then the likelihood of anything ever happening with it is extremely small. You know, you might as well go directly to Rhino Records after that. But with musicals and stuff, they can be put on and they could be successful and not successful, and then found around for years, and then somebody will decide that they'd like to take another crack at it, so they put it on. And maybe they have a slant on it that's better than the original, and it'll become successful. So it's not as if it's in the dead letter office. Something can happen with it any time. Right now, I'm kind of involved with a lot of other things, and it's nothing that I'm going to invest a lot of energy in. But if it's always possible, and some serious party wanted to do something with it, I'd certainly help them.
Todd, what will be your role on the next Meatloaf album, and are your guitar chops up to snuff for the next Utopia album?
I don't know that I will have any role in the next Meatloaf album. Scheduling has always been a bit of a problem with that. They asked me to do a few things, and we just couldn't seem to get our timing together.
Hi, Todd. This is
As far as my guitar chops are concerned,
Yeah.
I don't know. Depends whether I decide to practice or not, I guess.
Hi, Todd. This is Steve Struder. I just wanted to ask you. I still love my Amiga. It's sort of a two-parter here. Has your opinion changed about the Amiga operating system now that you've worked with it a little bit more? And did Rush, the rock group Rush, ever approach you in 1982 to produce Signals? And would you produce a Rush album in the future? I'd like to ask them, because they're big fans of yours.
That's, well, it's curious. Let me see now. The more you work with the Amiga operating system, the lower opinion you get of it.
I love my Amiga.
I know, but, you know, Amiga is the Israel of computers. Surrounded by hostile neighbors, you know, it don't get no respect. The Rodney Dangerfield of computers.
Were you ever approached by Rush to produce an album?
I don't recall being approached by them ever to do that, and I don't anticipate being approached by them because, from what I understand, they've always done their own productions.
They actually wanted you to do Signals.
I never heard about it.
Oh, okay. Well,
geez, well, that's, you know, I am honored, but I heard nothing about it.
So Todd, what's next for you musically?
Musically, well, since I just gotten off of Warner Brothers, this is an opportunity I haven't had for 19 years to kind of take a clear look at what I can, what I want to do for the next sort of like long-term period. And in that sense, I'm not going to rush to do anything. Perhaps the most likely thing that I'll do, if I complete a project within the next year, it'll most likely be the next thing for the public theater, the so-called opera. But I haven't started that yet, and right now I'm involved in a few things that are preventing me from concentrating on it. So that'll most likely be the next thing I do musically.
Would you ever consider doing anything for us fans? I know we go to concerts and think of going, geez, we should tell them to play this or that. How about putting something right out for us?
Doing something for the fans. Well, we considered, you know, doing some little vanity recordings of one or two things, like our version of the Marvin Gaye medley.
Oh,
Money is no object to us, Todd.
So we may do that. It's a question of getting a good recording of it and taking care of all the other little sort of details and stuff, which I personally wouldn't do. We have to find somebody else to take care of that.
Todd, your voice has such an incredible range of texture. I was wondering, do you find those sounds just by kind of playing around, or do you have a sound in your head that you try to match?
I don't know. I'm not sure I've thought about it that much. Some stuff is stuff that you just arrive at by accident, and some of it is the constraints of your own limitations. Just come out sounding a certain way, and it may be that I'm trying to do something else and it just comes out sounding different than that. You do try to conform to something appropriate to the material, and I like to try and stretch a little bit in that direction so that I have a little bit greater expressive range. But
Todd,
I'm not sure that I've thought about it that much lately. I think that there are times when you go through technique development, and then there are times when you just sort of use it and don't think about it. And that's probably where I'm at now.
As the manager of a retail record store, I just want to tell you it's a personal thrill for me to sell your albums, first of all. And my question is, I'm from Philadelphia, and I just wondered if you ever get a chance, other than touring, to visit the city of brotherly love.
Not often, as a matter of fact. The way that things go for me, the kind of work that I do is obviously it's not a 9-to-5 job. And so when I do get involved in something, the project can go on for weeks and weeks, and the hours that I spend on it I may be spending 14, 16 hours a day on something. It's just the way that I work. So I don't travel a lot. I don't have leisure activities a lot, and I usually try and work all of my sort of personal and leisure activities around something that I've got scheduled that I have to do anyway. So what we usually do is when I go to Philadelphia, we try and structure the tour so that we're in Philadelphia for as long as possible, like maybe 5 days to a week. I believe on the last tour we were there, and that allows me to see my family and hang out with them, and see the few friends that are still around town in Philadelphia that I have.
Todd,
Like that.
when you're on the tour in Ohio coming up here, are you going to have the same playlist? And if not, I have one request: Love in Disguise.
Love in Disguise. Well, I wonder. It's possible that we may have one or two different songs, although it really depends on the inclination of the band. Since we completed the last tour in Japan, everybody's kind of gone off and done other things, so we haven't been together to rehearse songs, and we're only going to have like a day of rehearsal before the tour starts here. So I would have to say truthfully, it's probably doubtful there'll be much different in the set, but we'll try and, if anybody seems inclined, I'm certainly always inclined to add new material if the rest of the band knows what they're doing.
Is that Pixel in the background?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Todd.
Hi, how you doing?
Okay, we've all had the pleasure of hearing about your very creative and inventive technique for recording the hammer and Hammer in My Heart.
Yeah.
And
Cassie says hi.
Do you have any other little secrets you can tell us about your fun times in the studio?
Little secrets. Oh, geez, as soon as somebody asks me a question like that, it all becomes a blur and a blank.
We'll wait.
Trying to think of something particularly unusual.
Or something really
Well, and it seems sort of like, there's something coincidental to that. It's like, I don't know how many people have heard the Jill Sobule album.
Yeah. She's opening for Joe Jackson.
Yes, I know. In fact, she's opening tonight, I think, for Joe Jackson here in San Francisco. Actually, over in Berkeley. She was doing this, doing a song called The Gifted Child, I guess. And we tried all different versions, couldn't seem to find, did it all different ways, and they all seemed too pretentious or precocious and something. So we tried this one version where she just essentially did it with the piano, live. She set up a mic, and the piano player played the song, and she sang it. And that's how it came out. But then the dog likes to sing along with the piano sometimes. It was kind of warm out, so we left the studio door open. We didn't see the dog wander in the studio. She got to the very end of the song, and then we started to hear this howling noise. The dog is underneath the piano singing along with the song. And just sounded appropriate, so we left it in. So if you listen to the end of the song, you hear Pixel singing the final.
Todd, I read an article in an October 1975 preview that said you wouldn't be playing music past age 30 compared to the Rolling Stones and everything else. Obviously that changed. What happened?
Still had more to say?
That I said I wouldn't be?
Yeah.
That's when you decided to
What did I-
retire.
Or at least that's what the guy wrote in the article. I mean, you could have said something completely different.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure that everybody feels that way when they first start out, because it is a little ridiculous. I'm sure that people, like teenagers now, when they look at somebody like me and the Rolling Stones, they think this is like Benny Goodman or
It's all right. We'll be going to Las Vegas to
the
see.
Count Basie bands, something like that. So, in that sense, I probably didn't visualize myself still like being on stage and geeking around the way I seem to be doing. So I guess I was wrong. I'm doing other things, which is what I expected to do, and things that have, make it possible for me to not have to depend totally on that when I think of myself as an artist. But yeah, it looks like I'm still doing it, and I guess I shouldn't make a foolish statement like that again.
Todd, when you're ever practicing, do you ever forget what you're singing or something? Like, do you forget, like, what song you're singing or anything?
Oh, I think everybody here has witnessed me do that.
How do you remember all the words?
Well, it's easier for me since I wrote them.
Okay.
It's a lot tougher for the people in the bands who have to remember all like the background parts and things like that, because they don't know how, they don't see how it fits in the way that I do, or I'm singing because I'm trying to visualize what the meaning of the song is, so it's easier for me to remember what the words are.
That was Joe Jackson's answer.
Todd, I have a question. We spoke to Roger last night, and we got him to tell us a little bit about the subject matter of the video toaster computer whatever that you're working on.
Demo we were doing, yeah.
Right, for the C-graph, right? And I guess it's not done, or it's not done in time. But he told us that it's your view of theology, or the history of theology through the eyes of architecture. And if that's at least that's what he said. And he told us, it's made public now, and we want to ask you, why you chose architecture. Can you talk about it?
Well, architecture is a part of it. That's kind of the job we have to do. But it was really sort of about the way the world changed around this particular object. There was this one object that this alien culture, considered to be subject of worship. So they build all this stuff around it, and of course that implies the architectural part. But it's really sort of the evolution that is the central subject matter. The reason why we did it that way is because there's a trend now towards character animation and computer graphics, and in which you sort of animate like people or make things look like funny little dancing creatures and stuff like that. And we don't have right now the best tools for doing that, although we're working on it. So we figured we should concentrate on the things that we were a little bit more solidly based in. And that's why it has a more architectural theme than, say, little dancing table lamps. Or things.
Todd, could you shed any light on your newfound contacts in the Japanese music industry and the possibility of financing for a new Utopia project?
Well, as a matter of fact, we have, for some reason, I'm big in Japan out now, and we have a lot of interest over there in terms of me, and not only me, but Utopia. But right now we're negotiating, kind of holding out for something a little larger than just a Utopia album or a Todd Rundgren album, or even just a deal for me or the band. Because of my involvement in all these other areas, particularly areas that have to do with interactive television and computers and stuff, that we want to start a label for artists who know how to use these things and create a new kind of entertainment that makes use of them. And so I'm not interested in signing with another record company, because they'll probably just think in the same old terms of music, and then you kind of paste on all the other things afterwards. This will be kind of art and entertainment that from the first is designed to have pictures, and not only pictures and sound, but possibly interactivity where the audience can determine what part of the experience they want to inhabit.
So if it's not Utopia next, is there any chance of just a solo album from you?
Well, as I said, none of this stuff is going to be soon. I wouldn't expect anything from me and probably not even from Utopia for maybe 2 years.
Wrong answer.
Unless we put out some, one or two of these little vanity things, but they won't be important releases that'll go out to the public at large or anything like that.
Would the Japanese project be an import to us?
No, this would be a worldwide label.
Okay.
And there will be other artists signed to it.
Hi, Todd. Part one. I'd like to introduce you to a guy who's here. His name is Ken Gullick. He came out from Texas. And he performed You Cried Wolf from the Todd Rundgren tribute album.
Yeah.
Asked you about Heaven's Falling a little earlier. I wonder what you thought of that track or possibly the whole tribute album. And also, did working with Andy Partridge completely put you off listening to XTC for life?
No, as a matter of fact, I still enjoy listening to XTC. I probably feel about them the way I felt about them before I produced them, which is they're, quirky bands, that does music that I sometimes like and sometimes think is just too difficult to listen to. And then also I have these, very vague memories of a nasty little English man. As far as the tribute album was concerned, I thought it was great. We all listened to it on the bus.
There goes.
Amazed by how good everything was, and I thought it's too bad it isn't on a real record label.
It's getting some press, though.
Yeah, I thought it said some oldies newsletter or something like that.
But didn't you like the way the guy merged You Cried Wolf and Wolfman Jack?
Pardon me?
Didn't you like the way Ken merged You Cried Wolf with Wolfman Jack?
I mean, it's a great idea. It's an obvious idea. It's almost something I would do.
What did you think of the There Goes My Inspiration? Did you like it that way?
Pardon me?
There Goes My Inspiration.
That was one of the ones I thought would make a good single.
Yes, I thought it was too.
Todd, I always thought that you had a very enviable position with your contract with Warner Brothers, where they had to produce everything that you did. I was kind of surprised to hear that all of that is gone now. I didn't know that it ended. What do you foresee, would you like to get another deal like that? I know that you're looking in a different direction now.
Well, as I said, I'm not interested in signing with another record label. We're going to be forming with some major entity, either a Japanese entity or American entity, and it may be a computer company rather than a record company, a new label for, there will be, records will be a part of it, CDs will be a part of it, but CDs will be sort of like the least interesting part of it. Which is not to say the music will be, it's going to be boring. It's just when you get the CD, all you'll get is music. You won't get any of the images, and you won't get the opportunity to interact with it in any way. So we're trying to create something that's as different from a record company as a record company was from a music paper publishing company before that. It's just sort of an evolution in things. At one point, people couldn't buy records. There weren't enough records or record players around, so you bought printed sheet music and played it on your own piano. And then you could eventually get the performances of other people on record. And I think the next step is to be able to interact with the performances of other people. So in some ways, it would be a combination of both.
Todd, whatever happened with the BMU lawsuit, and I wanted to know what the Zen Machine is.
British Musicians Union?
Yeah.
Oh, they dropped that. I mean, they conceded a long time ago. They just, at one point they just said they gave up, conceded the whole thing. So.
And what is the Zen Machine?
What's that?
What is the Zen Machine? I asked Willie, and he said I had to ask you. It was your title.
Uh-huh. Well, it was a song we wrote about sort of like our involvement with computers and machines in general, and just kind of like this feeling you get after a while, that you're a little bit too involved with it. almost as if it's starting to grow into you or something. So it has a lot to do with if you've ever pulled an all-nighter on a computer. That's the kind of feeling you get after that.
Well, we have one more question for you, Todd.
One more?
One more.
The final question.
2.
Make it good.
3.
What about books, authors that you're into?
Pardon me?
Books or authors that you're into? Have you read any good stuff lately?
Authors. Let me see. I'm trying to remember a book I've read recently. My problem is I don't read a lot of fiction. I'm always. It seems like I'm always reading manuals or tutorials or something about some new, factual concept that I have to understand. Programming languages and junk like that. Nothing is particularly entertaining. It's more educational. I think I read some science fiction book on the plane on the way to Japan last time. I'm trying to remember who the author was. It might have been Philip K. Dick or somebody like that.
Todd, I want to ask you, I'm dying to know the back of the Runt album.
Yeah.
Where did that cartoon come from? Whose idea was it to put it on there?
I don't remember exactly who was in charge of putting the cover together, but they apparently there was this airbrush artist that was looking for some work, and they gave him the idea, and that's what he came up with. His name, I guess it was Bob Zoll, who eventually became real sort of famous and successful airbrush artist. I think he's still working in the business.
Cool.
And it was just he listened to the record. That was the idea he came up with after he heard it.
Todd, based on your previous comment, are you saying that you don't see a Utopia project in another 2 years? And if that's so, how can we persuade you to push that up a few years?
Since Roger Kasdan and Willie are all available.
Tomorrow?
Yes.
Well, there are, if there was a possibility, and there isn't right now, of us doing it tomorrow, it would still take us 6 months to get it together, I'm sure. We all have other commitments that we have to, we would have to schedule a time to do it and I'm sure that it would take us a little while just to get used to doing it again. We haven't worked for a while. So I would say even if we had a record deal signed tomorrow, it'd be 6 months minimum before you would see anything. And, we don't have anything like that, and since things like this go into protracted negotiations, even if we had an offer tomorrow from somebody, it might be 6 months before we had the deal, and then we'd have to figure out how to record, blah, 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 you know how it goes. So in any case, it wouldn't be real soon anyway. But if we do an album, I think it's going to fit into this new structure, which means that we don't just record the music, we have to create an entire interactive experience that goes with the concept that the music embodies. And it'll take a lot longer to produce this than it does to just simply go in and make a record.
Is there new equipment we should start buying or looking into?
Equipment? Well, I don't know. I would say just, try and get up to speed on it. It's almost better sometimes not to own the equipment or to try and get a hold of the equipment too soon, because it always gets cheaper and faster.
We should just rent.
You don't want to be caught flat-footed on the general concept, so it's always good to just, even just get some cheap, cheesy little thing like an Amiga. And start, getting comfortable with computer concepts.
Hey, Todd, is there a black box that's going to interface the toaster with the Mac?
As a matter of fact, me and David Levine are working on the Macintosh gateway for the toaster.
Send me one.
So that you won't have to look at the Amiga screen anymore. And they're going to be introducing that in 2 days at Macworld in Boston.
What about Flow Phaser on PC? Is that a possibility?
May or may not be. I always recommend that you get the Grok Gazer tape, because that does more than Flow Phaser does anyway, and you don't even need a computer for it. And it's got sound. So.
Okay.
So going back in time, the name Black Mariah from one of your early songs, do you remember where you got that name from, or means nothing?
It's the English term for police wagon.
You were talking about interactive television and the computer and all of that. I don't know that much about computers, but there was an article in Sports Illustrated about 3 weeks ago. It was their cover article that told all about how they see pay-per-view sports and how all these options that the viewer will have to interact. You may or may not have seen it, but it was kind of interesting. It brought it down to a level at least I could understand it. And the way they
Well, you won't need to know anything about a computer to be able to use the software that runs on it. I think that's the idea. And there's going to be things coming out in the next few years that are going to be designed for consumers, not necessarily computer users, that will allow them to take advantage of this. All kinds of things like CDI and LDI, and also there's a great interest in these sort of installation type deals, like they're called motion platform rides, and they put them up sometimes like in shopping malls and stuff like that, and they're like Star Tours at Disneyland, where you get in a box that's a little enclosed environment with projector and sound, and they shake the box around and they move your chair and stuff and give you a little bit of a thrill ride. And we'll be doing stuff for that as well, except it won't be like riding around on a roller coaster. It'll be the experience of music and visuals that has nothing to do with, necessarily to do with anything that's concrete or representational.
Todd, are you a vegetarian, and is Foster's still your favorite beer?
My eating habits are no business of yours, young man.
Todd, how does life in California compare to the East Coast? Do you like it?
What's that?
How does life in California compare to the East Coast? Do you like San Francisco?
Well, I don't know what it's like there now. I've been here for about 6 years, mostly, and we think everyone should live here.
Do you still have a
We want to secede from the Union, We want to have our own country, let all the bozos go to Washington.
Hey, Todd, while we're waiting 2 or 3 years for your next Utopia or solo album, we've heard talk of maybe a rarities project. How much influence will you have on what comes out on that? If it comes out, will it come out, and what would be on it?
The only project that I know of now, I don't know of a rarities thing, but the one that I know of now is a production compilation, various things that I produced. And I think Rhino is about to come out with that. They're just trying to get a couple more cuts for it.
Okay, well, we'll let you go now. We were just wondering, do you have any questions for anybody here?
Where's the party?
Right here. It's here, and we really appreciate it.
Todd's World.
Okay.
Well, we thank you very much for us, and we can't wait to see you.
Great. Well, we'll see you in a couple weeks then.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.